Mr. Flynn, I'm also going to show you State's Exhibit 8. Do you recognize what's in that picture?
The front door and the screen door. The storm door.
About how many houses, if you recall, did you go to that day?
Probably 40.
And typically when you go up to a house, are you inventorying where everything is and how doors open and how they're located, or afterwards are you doing your best just to sort of remember how everything was set up?
Well, you pay attention to the house because you have to have access for the direct TV equipment. So they need to know the entryways and where they're gonna put the satellites and stuff like that. So yeah, you kind of look at the property. My memory is a little bit better than most. Like I had a lot of nursing training in the military and things of that nature. So I pay a lot of attention to minute details. So I don't necessarily know that you remember how every house is configured, but like I remember a lot of things because I was like trained to notice things. So I remember more than probably most people would.
Okay. So if I understand you, somebody says, come on in, I'm in here. Can you describe what happens from that point on? What do you do?
Well, when I walk in a room, in a house, like I said, I don't see him, I hear him. I still can't see because you have to walk into and then into the room that he's in. So when I turn and I enter the room that he's in, out of my peripheral, I see that he's not clothed. My assumption at that point is I caught the man in the shower. I turn, and you can see in your pictures, there's a window and a small heater there. As soon as you walk into the second room, when I went in, I saw that he wasn't clothed. I turned my back to him. Oh, hi, my name is Earl, and I went directly into my conversation because my assumption was I caught the man in the shower, and you know he would use me averting my gaze to put his clothes on, do whatever he was doing.
I want to ask you a couple questions about that. Okay? You said I want to go back when you're on the sidewalk or on the walkway. You said you turned and you saw an arm waving you. Did you see anything else of the person at that time?
No, and it's two reasons for that. As you can see, the house is set.
So that I don't all lose track of the question, and I want to ask you to make clear, when you just said, well, nobody's nude but you, did you actually say that to the man?
Yes, I verbalized it because it was weird. I'm talking to you about a television, and you're telling me this is a nudist home. Like, didn't make any sense to me. I said, nobody's nude but you. Either way, how many televisions do you have? I'm trying to push forward with it, and I'm starting to get uncomfortable because I didn't understand what that was even alluding to. Like, why would you tell me that, and why do I care? Like, I'm talking to you about TVs.
And you said you kept pushing forward. What sorts of things are you talking about at this time?
I'm explaining to the man channels. I'm explaining to the man the differences between the 1080 IP and what Comcast is giving people for high definition quality. I'm still within the sphere for rebuttals. I'm actually knocking Comcast and Bowstring up DirecTV. So when he interjected with the question, there was more conversation about the television. You know what I mean? Like, he just interjected, and when he interjected, I'm sarcastic by nature. Like, I couldn't help it. I just responded and kept moving. Because I'm getting annoyed, but I don't want to be rude. I'm in this man's house. I'm new to this. I'm not understanding what I should really do.
So you go on with your spiel. Does he engage in any more conversation with you?
Yes.
Can you describe that conversation as best as you can recall?
Well, I got angry. He asked me, was I homosexual? And I said no. I said, well, at this point, this is the services we can provide you. I'm going to leave my name and my number on this brochure for you. And he says, well, I'm really thinking about doing this. They kind of baited me back into the conversation to keep me from bolting at that point.
Okay. You said you were going to leave your name and number. Did you leave at that point, or you said he baited you back into the conversation?
Right, he kept the conversation going. And I'm like, well, I got other calls. We'll be in the area till 8. I go to put the brochure, because you know I'm still, my back to him, there's a desk right here. I go to put the brochure on the desk, but prior to me putting the brochure to the desk, I heard a smacking sound. When I heard the smacking sound, obviously we turned. I turned, he was masturbating behind me. At that point, I got very uncomfortable. I wrote my name and number down, said, look, at 8 o'clock, I'll be in the area till 8 o'clock. If DirecTV is something you're interested in, me or one of the other representatives in the area can come back and help you. He says, oh, well, you can come back when you get off. We're having a party tonight. I'm like, if this is something you're interested in, my name and my number is on the back of the brochure. And I left out of his house.
You indicated when you turned that you saw that he was masturbating. Do you recall if he was standing up or sitting down?
Standing up.
And you said you heard his smacking noise and turned and observed him masturbating.
It'll sound throughout our conversation. I'm not knowing what he's doing. As I said again, his back, my back is thin. So obviously, this is what he was doing the whole conversation we were having. I didn't know that. I didn't know what the noise behind me was until it got so loud. You know what I mean? When I turned and I realized that that's what he was doing, I mean, he, like, throughout the whole thing, he was when I asked him something about the TV, he would, like when he asked me, was I gay? Or when he said you could come back to the party, I'm getting angrier, but I'm in shock because I don't know really what to do. I know I'm in Derry, New Hampshire, I'm a black man on Lane Road. Like, in my mind, I'm like, you know, what do I do right now? Because I'm totally offended. He's smirking at me, smiling, and I'm like, I've never been in a situation like that. I had no idea how to respond other than to try to make sure I got out of his house. I was feeling really uncomfortable. So I didn't know what to do, to be really honest. I just panicked and I left, called my boss like less than 50 feet from his driveway.
You anticipated a number of my questions. When you realized what this man was doing, what was your thought?
I was horrified. I mean, honestly, I think it was rude. I think for a person to enjoy doing something like that there are problems, underlying issues there. And personally, I just think anyone that would get pleasure from making someone else so obviously uncomfortable is a weirdo. Like, information about DirecTV, and if they want to switch, then they can. Like, I'm not in here making this man switch. So I'm not competing with anyone. I'm just giving them information about DirecTV. I wouldn't consider that competing.
All right, and part of your job is to go door to door and canvass at potential customers' houses, right?
Yes, it is.
And you described that you're given a grid or a map, and you, among your colleagues, divide up your turf, you said.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
And then you go out into a particular area where you decide to canvass, and you go door to door speaking with people in that area, right?
Yes.
And when you do that, you never have an appointment, right?
Unless you make an appointment prior, like in a situation like that, we canvass towns and grids for a period of time until we're completed. So if I'm in an area and they say, well, come check me this day or the next day, if you're going to be back in this area, then that would be an appointment. But rarely are there ever appointments.
Okay. Rarely are there appointments. So rarely, for instance, on July 11th, John Anderson didn't know you were going to come to the door, correct?
Of course not.
He wasn't expecting you.
No, it was not.
All right. And that's because you didn't call to make an appointment or anything like that.
How could I call someone I didn't know, sir? It's impossible. No, but it's impossible to call first to a place I've never been